Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. Today I'm joined by Jessica Wright of AO2. How you doing, Jess?
Doing well. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm busy, but very happy. Spring is here. I hear the birds chirping outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, we finally made it. So, um, today we're going to be talking about acquisitions. I know that you guys are sort of in the midst of it. Maybe already at the tail end of the whole transition process. No, doesn't
No.
sound like it. It's a long process. I can only imagine. I haven't gotten a chance to see that from the inside on the agency side. I've seen on the brand side, so that's why I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Before we dive in, Jess, can you speak a little to your journey, maybe even before AO2? I know you were the president, and you became the CEO after the whole thing, which we'll talk about. But even prior to AO2, what were you doing? How did you end up here?
Yeah. Try to give the shortest version possible. So I've been in the e-commerce Amazon space for about 20 years, almost. I started on brand side in 2008, working for a toy manufacturer. And so that's really where I learned everything e-commerce and everything Amazon. We were established, or the brand was, when I joined the team, with a lot of .com business. But we were just getting ready to launch on Amazon. So from day one, when we turned on at the time what was Dropship Central, when we set all of that up, I got involved from that point forward and just really enjoyed working in Amazon and figuring all of that out. And so stayed with the brand about 10 years, expanded my knowledge of Amazon and marketplaces generally through that. And left to work for what's now known as an accelerator, but didn't really have a name at the time. So kind of an agency, but who bought inventory, managed the brands on Amazon. They had been one of our customers at the toy company. So they managed our Amazon presence after a certain point. I joined them. We acquired many brands. So I've been through the acquisition thing on the brand side as well. And then left to work with Seller Labs, who I had been involved with since about 2015. I met them at an event as a provider that was working with us at the toy company, and just kind of stayed close with everything that they were doing, and decided to join them in 2020. And then AO2 acquired the agency side, so Seller Lab Services of Seller Labs, and that's how I became involved with AO2. And now here we are today, one more acquisition later, and I'm sitting in the CEO seat, and our founder has exited the business.
Wow, that's so cool. So you surfed in to the CEO position through two acquisitions.
Yeah, it really was never my intention even to work at an Amazon agency, if I'm being honest. I never had that goal. It seemed like really kind of cutthroat business that, people are always jumping around and it's stressful. So I never have had identified that as something I intended to do. Seller Labs was a great transition of being part agency, part tech provider.
Right.
And I thought that was a great place to be. But yeah, through the acquisitions, I ended up here, and obviously I love what I'm doing.
So cool. So when it comes to the acquisition part, there's obviously a lot of blending that happens. And so there's difficult decisions that need to be made, right? With who stays on maybe and who has to be let go. Like it's very like P&L oriented always. And so, that's just what has to happen. So has that been the most difficult part of it all, just kind of blending the teams together and the processes and getting all the different departments to work together? Or that wasn't really what were the biggest bottlenecks that you guys experienced?
Yeah. So I would say on the not this acquisition, the prior one, so the Seller Labs to AO2, because that was a true merger
Right.
of two teams. That absolutely what you're describing was the biggest pain point, and really we learned a lot through that one, what we could have done differently to avoid some of those things. Because I think your biggest fear is, in an acquisition, you acquire people as much as the name, as much as the clients. And so you don't want to lose clients for sure, but people are also important, and having to make some of those P&L based decisions. You get to own some of those, and you get to make some of those decisions and choose some of the changes that you make. And then some changes or fallout from those decisions or other things related to the acquisition. And in the case of a merger, that was much more difficult. We lost a lot of people. We chose to make decisions that maybe had we sat with things a little bit longer, we wouldn't have had to make those decisions. So I think that's always the most difficult part. But what I learned through that and was able to carry forward into this was to sit in things a little bit longer. If the P&L allows it,
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily have to make those changes the first week. You don't have to look and say, okay, there's redundancy here. Let's just choose one and move forward, because
Yeah.
you don't necessarily know that that's the right move on week one. I was a little bit luckier with this acquisition because it was a true acquisition and not a merger, that we didn't have a lot of those redundancies and we didn't have to make those ASAP decisions, and I could sit with it. But looking back to the Seller Labs acquisition, and if I was giving anybody advice on this, if your P&L allows it, I understand that sometimes mergers or acquisitions are done because one of the businesses is in like really tough shape and you just have to make some quick decisions. But if you're not in that position and you can sit with things, you might be surprised by what comes out of it. For us, that company culture and being able to like maintain company culture and maintain great morale was so much more important than making some quick decisions and maybe being wrong and harming the team.
Yeah, because I see how you can just cut out software and those types of those are simple.
Yeah.
But then if you have two, let's say, any position that you have two people sitting in the same seat. But the thing is that each one has its own, like in the first acquisition, each one had its own service of clients, right? And
Mm-hmm.
even though there's redundancy in the actual role itself, the work being done is not redundant. So
Correct.
it's okay to have two of the same as long as they're split properly.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to overload people. So I imagine there's also just like a layer of, let's see if people can be retained, but maybe change their position, right? Like mid management, high management type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, you might be doubling the book of business. You might need all of those people, but you want to see what the skill sets are and who has strengths in,
Yeah.
maybe people management versus,
Yeah.
client retention, and shift people to those roles. And if you're able to do that, that's, really where you're setting up for success.
Yeah, and those things are the ones that take time, right? So just seeing how everybody plays together, and it just kind of comes up naturally, right? Like you start seeing conflicts appear and you're like, well, obviously that's an area. Or then maybe something else doesn't have a conflict where you thought it might, and you're like, well, that just worked out by itself, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then you mentioned the software piece too, which is important because that can be a really easy area to save money. And
Mm-hmm.
it also, we learned in the Seller Labs to AO2 acquisition, it can be a really big pain point as well. If
Oh,
you're doing a true merger, not just an acquisition, and you say, okay, well, we're bringing in these 60 clients that have this account management team who is using this software, and now you have this team who are using this software, and you just choose one overnight, you might lose data. You might have a longer learning curve than you thought to get people up to speed, which then causes problems within the account management, which then causes churn. So in an ideal world, if you can take 90 days and just sit with most of those things as well and figure out like, what does an actual transition plan look like to get all of these clients onto this software, or all of these account managers using this tool, then that also will impact success, either positively or negatively, depending on how you can approach it.
so what were some of the like approaches that you took to tracking all of this? Like, is it just having lots of conversations with everybody and getting a pulse, or is there like some Excel sheets, like maybe like taking more of a data driven approach? Like, what's the best way, if you can give advice to somebody going through that?
Yeah, I think conversations are the biggest thing, like that. In a lot of cases, I didn't have to solicit feedback or, schedule meetings. When something wasn't going well, the team was very loud about it. So
Mm-hmm.
that is helpful, but listening to it, not just thinking that whatever your initial opinion is best, but hearing the team, because I'm not using our ad tech software, or, whatever, tool it is that we're using for now these days, Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it might be, to pull together the data. I use those things in a different way, but I'm not using it day to day to manage accounts and work with the clients. And so I shouldn't be the one making that decision ultimately about what we're going to use. I should have insights and understand why we should lean one way or another, but ultimately it should be that team that's using it. So hearing their feedback, that they're just offering up, and then scheduling time to take a look at it. And then, of course, cost analysis and actual use cases. Is it working for what we need? Do we have two tools that are contributing the same thing? Things like, we're really easy, like DocuSign versus PandaDoc. Which one does everything we need and has the right price? And can we opt in for monthly versus annually while we figure this out? Like, some of them are much easier than figuring out, like, what's the, ads management or ads reporting tool that we work with when we've got so many brands so heavily integrated into that software.
Okay. And biggest regrets besides the whole waiting part?
This time around, really not much. And I feel very, very lucky to be able to say that, because this acquisition has been very smooth. I think, if you ask the team, because I heard about this but wasn't directly involved in the day-to-day, the biggest mistake that was made the first time around, that we absolutely did not make the second time, was with regard to the advertising software. And that's probably why it has natively come up in what I've said like multiple times.
Right.
Understanding what we need to get out of the old software to bring into the new software in terms of history and data that we're not going to lose, that we can't just like connect the new provider and have this look back. And a lot has changed even in the 2 years since then, but not knowing up front, we have to do all of this to prepare to move things over. And that probably can be copy pasted to a number of different use cases for this software, for this person, for this role. But for us, it was specifically like, that was the big ouch, where we were like, oh, we need to now go back 3 steps, make sure we get everything we need to bring over, because when we connect this seller to this software, it's day one. We don't have that, that history that we've had for the last 5 years of this seller being a client of Seller Labs. We've got to bring all of that with us. And so, going in with eyes wide open after the fact, we know those things, but that was a really big pain point that created some extra work and extra things we had to go back and do. And when you have one mistake like that, I guess it's a good thing, because then you look at everything else you might be doing and okay, how do I prepare now for all of these things so I don't have a big mistake like that?
Yeah, Amazon doesn't really store your data very well. So if you have 5 years of data and that gets lost, I mean, that could be a big problem. Maybe the client doesn't know that that's happening in the background, but it does help to make informed decisions when you have the whole story, something to reference to, and like seasonal trends and things like that. So it's good to have backups somewhere, right? Just in general.
We still had access to, Seller Labs, and we could get that because that's where it all had been before. But
yeah,
it was best case, worst case scenario for us, but it could have been really bad. I mean, not like day-to-day operations stop, but like the things you said, where we have all of those things to look back on, compare on, and make better informed decisions about.
And from like the client optics perspective, was it a challenge with either one of these transitions? Just saying, okay, we're the same people, but now things are changing. Like, did they feel like there was a shakiness to it? Did you have to compensate anybody?
Yeah, I think, that's another one where having, 2 back-to-back really gave us opportunity to pivot and do better. I think the first time around, we really tried to embrace it and say, this is Seller Labs plus AO2. We are now, you're getting the best of both worlds with this. All these same people are coming over. There's not going to be a lot of changes, but of course there were changes because there were some new people that got added in. Not everybody was retained. Not everybody wanted to stick around. So it was shaky and there were a lot of changes, and we changed softwares, and that changed how we communicated with clients. At Seller Labs, we communicated with clients through email or phone. Mm-hmm. And then, had meetings. At AO2, we communicate with clients primarily through Slack. They're part of our Slack group, and we do a lot of communications in there. We still do email and phone and, whatever is needed to get the job done. But, we really have more of that real time contact. And for some brands, that was great. It was something that was a positive for them. And for some brands, they didn't use Slack in their day-to-day life. They wanted to, continue with email. And so then you've got exceptions. We've got, 50 clients who are running smoothly all in Slack. All the communications are the same. And then you have these other 10. Now you have to make some changes to how you do the day-to-day operation. So there were definitely even more hiccups for clients, I think, in that acquisition or that merger versus this time around. We really just wanted to keep things status quo. So no changes to who was managing. We barely, mentioned the holdco. We didn't try and make a big, I think first time around we had a webinar to lay everything out. Second time around, we just said, sent out an email, sent a Slack message and said, hey, this happened. Nothing's going to change for you. Your people are your people. The tools we're using are the same. The way you communicate, everything is the same. We just now are part of this larger group of independent agencies who all operate different businesses separately. And we kept it all separate, and that made a big difference.
The Slack thing is interesting. There's always the controversy. Do you allow clients into the Slack? And on my side, I've tested that a little bit, and it can create a lot of this expectation chaos, right? Especially if you have a lot of international people on the team. Mm-hmm. Some people can't get to a message when it's 10 o'clock at night, right? But then the client may be in a different time zone, and so they expect an answer now, and somebody has to step in. So you have to have really a good system of checks and balances and team and time zones. You have to have a good setup for that.
Yeah. And I definitely don't use it as much as the rest of the team does. And they may have different opinions. I know there was definitely some resistance on, the people who came into AO2 and hadn't been using it that way versus the people at AO2 who had been using it for a while. Mm-hmm. I think what helps us is, we do have an international team as well. So we have clients who are all over, but our team is as well. And so whereas, most of our account managers are US based, maybe our advertising team is based in, one region primarily, and our operations team is somewhere else. And so we do kind of have someone online during most of the day and night. So that is helpful, but also just setting realistic expectations about communications, just like we do about scope of work. What we will and won't touch in their account. Here's what you can expect in terms of communications, because it's important I don't want anyone on the team to feel like they have to be answering messages outside of their working hours. Even if something really important comes up, you wouldn't know that if it wasn't in Slack, right? If you weren't getting those messages. So turn off your Slack alerts. Don't go outside of scope, and the client understands that we answer within X amount of time during these hours. And if the ops person is on and sees it and it's something they can address, or the PPC person or whatever it might be, they're going to do that. But we try and set those expectations up front so that everyone knows what to do and what to expect.
Yeah. I mean, I think setting realistic expectations is probably the key to avoiding so many problems, right? And that probably applies to all relationships, not even in this case, but in this case specifically, because that's always the thing, having somebody on WhatsApp, or like I've had clients just call me in the middle of the night, oh my God, there's this issue. And, you want to be respectful and answer the phone and be available, but at the same time, there needs to be a boundary there too, and creating the fine line. But I like that having teammates in different places, everybody is on the channel, so somebody can jump in. Whoever's around, right? Whoever's working can jump in.
Even if it's just to give them the peace of mind that it's it's been acknowledged, somebody saw it, and action is going to be taken. Sometimes that's all they need to know, is that someone's seeing that there's an issue. even if that person can't resolve that issue in the next 15 minutes, the wheels are turning, and someone at AO2 is giving them, that peace of mind that there's going to be action taken.
Awesome. Jessica, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this. A lot of us are in the process of looking to buy or looking to be acquired or merge. Like, this kind of thing is always, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, there's a lot of chaos. So
Yep.
this has been really good to hear.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Excited to talk to anybody about this topic. If people are in this situation or thinking about it, it's definitely something I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on. So happy to keep talking about it.
Awesome. They can find you. People can reach out on LinkedIn, email.
Absolutely. Yeah. LinkedIn is probably the best and my, quickest response. So find me there. The Holdco, Barrel Holdings is our Holdco, always looking for great opportunities. So if somebody is, interested in being acquired, having an initial chat with me is a great place to start that combo too.
Awesome. You guys heard it. So find Jessica on LinkedIn. Thanks, Jess, again. And thanks everyone for watching.
Thank
Catch
you.
you on the next one.